was the Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you informed on what the administration has been doing that will create a better environment for citizens. I'm your host, Shanta Govardhan. Thank you for joining us. In this week's presentation for the period January 10 to 16, 2015, over $133 billion invested in education upgrade over recent past, sector gets good review. More attention to be paid to trafficking in persons to reduce this scourge, and Georgetown Public Hospital to be upgraded to offer more specialized health care. Guyana will be guided by the Constitution, as once the parliamentary provisions exist, the administration will be ready to table a national budget in keeping with the constitutional prescriptions, according to Finance Minister Dr. Ashley Singh.
In addition to being guided by the Constitution and legislation, Minister Singh said the administration would also be guided by the Chief Justice's ruling. With regards to upcoming 2015 national budget, Singh acknowledged that the Constitution prescribes the tabling of the national budget within the first quarter of the year under normal circumstances. He added that the Constitution is also clear about what happens in relation to the presentation of the budget and the event the Parliament is dissolved before the expiration of the first quarter of the year.
Once the parliamentary conditions exist, we will be ready to table a budget in keeping with the constitutional deadline. There's no doubt about that. We will be ready to table a budget in keeping with the constitutional prescriptions. The opposition's cry about no consultation is a familiar one. In previous years, you would recall that they refused to make themselves available. You would recall one time even the leader of the opposition could not find Mr. Greenidge. When Mr. Greenidge was supposed to be engaging with us, I think he had disappeared somewhere and the opposition was unable to find him.
Commenting on the parliamentary opposition's actions in recent years, the finance minister said there should be no doubt in the minds of Guyanese that they have set about to undermine the strength of the economy. Nevertheless, the finance minister said that the administration will continue to place emphasis on the physical and social infrastructure of Guyana with the aim of keeping the country and its people along the growth path it has been on for the past 9 years.
Guyana's implementation of adaptation measures to deal with climate change were commended by Japan's Vice Foreign Affairs Minister during a recent visit to the Mega Hope Canal project.
The Japanese International Cooperation Agency JICA is funding the Guyana Conservancy Adaptation Project, which will aid in better management and operation of the conservancy, thus tackling climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. During a recent visit to Guyana, the Japanese Foreign Affairs Minister Takashi Yuto, along with Minister of Agriculture Dr. Leslie Ramsamy, visited the Hope Canal East Demerara Water Conservancy and was pleased with the works ongoing.
The Japanese, in addition to providing us with equipment for routine maintenance, is also in a second component allowing us to upgrade some of their outlet structures. Remember, the Conservancy is an important irrigation source for all the villages on the east coast and east bank. This is where they get their irrigation water. So in periods of time, we release water into the villages. So 5 of these outlets that lead into villages like Anne's Grove and so on are being upgraded with the help of the Japanese government. There are also discharges on the Mahaika River, on the Demerara River, and the Japanese government is helping us to upgrade, to rehabilitate and upgrade the Maduni sluice. And that opens up into the Mahaika River.
Currently, works are ongoing to safeguard the 45-mile-long dam and on the inlets and outlets within the Conservancy Canal.
What we have in the Conservancy now is a continuous maintenance program. Daily, these equipment are out doing maintenance work on the 45-mile-long dam. In addition to the dam, we continuously desilt and continuously create new inlets and outlets within the Conservancy. Because when we talk of the Conservancy, people think it's this canal, but actually it's a Conservancy canal that aligns along a conservancy. So all those things, the swamp there is the Conservancy.
Under phase 1 of this JICA project, 8 excavators and 2 pontoons were procured, while under phase 2, US $3.8 million were provided for the rehabilitation of 6 structures within the EDWC, which includes Sarah Johanna, Nancy, Annandale, Hope, Shanks, and Maduni. These works will complement the Hope Canal project, on which government is investing US $15 million.
The Guyana government has been working aggressively to eliminate trafficking in persons. Continuous emphasis has been placed on sensitization, outlining the need to reduce this scourge that plagues all societies. This year, more emphasis will be directed to this issue.
The PPPC administration introduced a new action plan for the period 2014 to 2015 to address TIP. This plan seeks to reduce vulnerability among youths, expand on sensitization and awareness overall, and strengthen law enforcement response to TIP.
We look to up the ante in 2015, as we have publicly stated at the level of the National Task Force. And I'm happy to say that the department of this ministry was actively engaged throughout the length and breadth of Guyana, working in mining areas, working in communities around the country, sensitizing the populace.
The TIP Task Force conducted a number of awareness and sensitization sessions throughout all the administrative regions, with priority being placed on Region 9. Sessions were also conducted in 59 secondary schools with a total of 600 students, as well as with members of the Guyana Police Force in Bartica. The provision of support for TIP victims totaled over $983,000 for 2014, while there are other activities that will continue in 2015. There are plans to publish 5,000 TIP awareness booklets, which will be placed in schools in order to sensitize more students on the issue.
Guyana has earned a reputation of being one of the highest-ranked developing countries in the Education Index of the United Nations Human Development Report. But this success did not come overnight. The PPPC administration recognizes that education is the key to reducing poverty, and hence it has been making huge yearly allocations to ensure that the sector continues to be modernized. These investments in the nation's children have been paying dividends as the literacy rate is up and Guyanese students are excelling at regional exams. Over the past 5 years, the government spent about $133 billion on bettering the education system and, by extension, creating more and better opportunities for youth. In 2010, $21.4 billion was allocated. In 2011, the sum was $24.3 billion. In 2012, it was $26.5 billion. In 2013, it was $28.5 billion. And in the year 2014, it was $32.2 billion. These annual yearly sums have been used for infrastructure upgrade, nutritional needs for students, uniform allowance, curriculum development, teacher training, provision of text and exercise books, and for general modernization of the sector. The latest initiative has been a $10,000 cash grant for all students in the public education system. The end goal of all of these investments is that government wants children to remain in school and complete their secondary level education so that they will be equipped for a modern society and its needs. Stay tuned, more of the Weekly Digest after the break.
To ease traffic congestion along the East Bank Highway, which is a critical thoroughfare for accessing the city, plans are afoot to construct a new bypass linkage from Eccles to Diamond. Additionally, the feasibility study for the East Coast East Bank Bypass Road has been completed and government will be examining how to advance this huge project.
The Community Development Initiative Plan, CDP, under the Amerindian Development Fund, is a project introduced by the PPPC administration to secure livelihood for the Amerindian villages and hinterland communities. Already 25 communities have received $125 million to embark on agriculture, mining and tourism projects, among several others. Additionally, 161 communities are to benefit in the second phase, which will see $1.3 billion being disbursed. A message from the Government Information Agency. Ghana's crime-fighting capacity has been boosted tremendously. A state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, the formation of the country's first-ever special weapons and tactical SWAT unit, and institutional strengthening are some aspects of the sector's reforms. Capacity building has played an important role as ranks have received training both locally and overseas to effectively deal with various aspects of crime solving. A message from the Government Information Agency. The Amalia Fault Hydropower project is essential for a vibrant manufacturing sector. Under the flagship of the LCDS, Norway has transferred earnings from its partnership with Guyana, amounting to some $80 million to the Inter-American Development Bank to fund a part of Guyana's equity share in the project. High amongst the priorities will be ensuring the achievement of more affordable and more reliable energy. Government will deliver the Amalia Fault Hydropower project along with all of its attendant benefits. It is expected that there will be an achievement of financial closure and commencement of the construction of this project during 2015. A message from the Government Information Agency.
You're with the Weekly Digest, a program produced by the Government Information Agency. To ensure that Guyana has a vibrant mining sector, the Natural Resources and Environment Minister, along with officials of the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, met with the miners' umbrella body to discuss issues as well as plans for moving the sector forward in 2015 and beyond.
During the meeting, which was held on January 13, the minister announced that the Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association has been granted its fuel importation license. This will now allow for cheaper fuel as the government has approved the implementation of a tariff waiver of 10% on diesel fuel imported by the GGDMA Trading, Inc. for use only within the mining sector.
This, I think, and you would agree, is a substantial intervention and relief for the sector. And there are different numbers I've seen in front of me in terms of the sensitivity analysis that was done as to the impact. And the savings to the mining sector would be billions of dollars annually.
The minister said that tariff waiver has also been granted by the government on equipment and spares by the Guyana Revenue Authority. A list of 19 suppliers of mining equipment and spares was approved for a tax waiver. This will reduce the cost of spares and critical supplies for miners, as in addition to the items that are currently imported duty-free.
The 10% reduction in the tax on diesel, that stands good for the industry, because our cost of production, about 40% of our cost of production is fuel, and we mainly use diesel fuel. Now that 10% intervention will help the industry. Our only hope is that the price of fuel also come down, because as you know, the price of fuel on the world market has dropped from over $100 to under $50 a barrel. But we haven't seen that price pass on to the public.
It is expected that 12,000 to 15,000 people directly involved in the sector will benefit from this intervention.
Infrastructure at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation will be upgraded to focus on specialized health care, which will add surgical capacity at the country's main health institution.
The Health Ministry continues to focus on quality health care and as such has invested heavily in infrastructure development. The sum of $33 million is to be spent on the Georgetown Public Hospital towards the expansion of the theater and intensive care departments. The ICU department will focus on expanding its bed capacity, whilst other units will cater for surgical patients. With further theaters added, it will allow for greater access and an increase in the number of surgeries being conducted. Additionally, an expansion of the dialysis unit will see an increase in capacity and extend its service hours, which will continue to increase treatment time and allow more persons to access this care. Further, the maternity ward will also be extended to enhance and extend this type of care. It intends to add some 70 more beds for pre- and postnatal care. A new theater is also set to ease the burden on the two existing ones.
There continues to be criticisms that the government is filling the public sector with contracted workers and paying them bigger salaries. But Public Service Minister Dr. Jennifer Westford has debunked such claims.
The perception that contract workers are receiving super salaries was recently debunked by Minister of the Public Service Dr. Jennifer Westford as she sought to explain that differences between a contracted worker and a pensionable worker.
The difference between the contracted public servant, they're all public servants, mind you. They are all employed against positions that are listed within the public service of Guyana. They are our accountants, they are our engineers, our typist clerks, our cleaners, our drivers. Those are the persons. And each one of those persons, they have the exact same salaries as the pensionable worker. The difference between the two is that one, because he's on the pensionable establishment, he or she will work until age 55 or 60, depending on when they come on to job, because we try to ensure that they must have at least 10 years service before you can get a pension. So they will normally retire at age 55 and they get a pension, a gratuity and a pension. The other category, who is the contracted worker, they will now get, instead of waiting to age 55, they get something we call a contract gratuity.
This payment is based on the same pension scheme calculation of 22.5% of the contracted worker's basic salary. According to the Public Service Law, any public service staff can decide whether he or she wants to be a pension worker or a contract worker.
And that choice didn't just fall out of thin air. And again, you have been quoting my budget presentations. I have gone again on record and on all of my speeches for over the last 5 years, quoting where that decision came from. It is listed in the public service rules. And I've gone to the extent of even copying those rules and sharing it out into the parliament. But what I can tell you though, and I think, and as I said, it's a deliberate move, it's deliberate, it's all deliberate.
However, there is a category of workers employed based on foreign funded projects and are paid based on what the projects provide. Once the project is ended, these workers would be on the public service payroll and their salaries are adjusted.
Stay tuned. More of the Weekly Digest after the break.
To ease traffic congestion along the East Bank Highway, which is a critical thoroughfare for accessing the city, plans are afoot to construct a new bypass linkage from Eccles to Diamond. Additionally, the feasibility study for the East Coast East Bank Bypass Road has been completed and government will be examining how to advance this huge project.
The Community Development Initiative Plan, CDP, under the Amerindian Development Fund, is a project introduced by the PPPC administration to secure livelihood for the Amerindian villages and hinterland communities. Already 25 communities have received $125 million to embark on agriculture, mining and tourism projects, among several others. Additionally, 161 communities are to benefit in the second phase, which will see $1.3 billion being disbursed. A message from the Government Information Agency. Ghana's crime-fighting capacity has been boosted tremendously. A state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, the formation of the country's first-ever special weapons and tactical SWAT unit, and institutional strengthening are some aspects of the sector's reforms. Capacity building has played an important role as ranks have received training both locally and overseas to effectively deal with various aspects of crime solving. A message from the Government Information Agency. The Amalia Fault hydropower project is essential for a vibrant manufacturing sector. Under the flagship of the LCDS, Norway has transferred earnings from its partnership with Guyana, amounting to some $80 million to the Inter-American Development Bank to fund a part of Guyana's equity share in the project. High amongst the priorities will be ensuring the achievement of more affordable and more reliable energy. Government will deliver the Amalia Fall hydropower project along with all of its attendant benefits. It is expected that there will be an achievement of financial closure and commencement of the construction of this project during 2015. A message from the Government Information Agency.
During Cabinet's statutory meeting at the Office of the President on January 14, several issues of national concern were discussed. The media was subsequently briefed on Cabinet's deliberations.
The concerns raised in the media by the United Kingdom's outgoing British High Commissioner Andrew Ayer about President Ramata's prorogation of Parliament have been strongly criticized by government. Dr. Roger Luncheon pointed out that it was terribly dishonorable to attempt to depict President Ramata's actions as a constitutional crime.
Knowingly misdepicting prorogation in Guyana as a constitutional crime severe enough to utter that S word, sanctions, that is so bandied around today in the international discourses.
The threat to withhold development aid to Guyana was also viewed as dastardly, since they have been instrumental in organizing and contributing to development aid to Guyana over the years from external sources. However, the issue of prorogation being elevated to some similarity to the Fijian experiences is really taking the issue totally out of proportion.
It is attempts to damage Guyana's credibility and its economic prospects, considered by Cabinet to be unpardonable.
Meanwhile, the HPS also noted that Cabinet has also commended the head of state for his visit to India.
The President met the Prime Minister and other high-ranking members of the Indian government. And both sides recognize the continued emphasis that was being paid to the development of ties, to the promotion of ties between the government and people of Guyana and India.
The HPS called too for the GGMC strike to be stopped for talks to begin. He also pointed out that the public hearings of the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry are expected to resume in January 2015, in addition to hearings being held in February and March.
And now for perspectives with Dr. Prem Nazir.
The President's proclamation of prorogation would be a useful case study on the traditional opposition and the new opposition's modus operandi on Guyana's development. The media onslaught following the proclamation of prorogation was similar to the treatment given to the many stalled Government of Guyana capital projects that are now languishing in some corner of nothingness, thanks to the traditional and new opposition groups. In this sordid political context, many people present their political positions where they use democracy as a password to justify those positions. Invariably, those positions are opinions and not facts, but are presented as facts. At the present time, many critics are still having a field day with their anti-prorogation arguments, presenting their opinions, not facts. And then, in an attempt to justify this position, they exploit the use of the word democracy. That is, they would say that prorogation has silenced the voice of democracy. The Constitution of Guyana states clearly in Article 71, thus, and I quote, "The President may at any time, by proclamation, prorogue Parliament," end of quote. Prorogation is a done deal, and the President is in compliance with the Constitution of Guyana. The traditional opposition and the new opposition, through utilizing democracy to support their opinions really are a threat to democracy itself because they see their opinions as factual beyond any reasonable doubt, where only their position is correct. And in the process, they shut out and dismiss other commentaries not supportive of their opinions. That is quite undemocratic. Let me clarify. The opposition groups present their opinions as if they are written in stone, or they are God's words, or that they have absolute knowledge. However, a knowledge that has excessive certainty will produce no room for a difference of opinion. And in the end, the opposition groups would not tolerate, and they do not tolerate, opinions opposed to theirs. It is this intolerance of opinions that is undemocratic, opinions that are opposed to the opposition group's positions. Liberal democracy does not claim certainty of knowledge or absolute knowledge, and does not deny the existence of truth. Liberal democracy makes no claim to absolute knowledge. There are always doubts about knowledge in a liberal democracy, making room for opposing opinions. And liberal democracy does not impose its views on the people. The opposition group's positions do not subscribe to what is called a liberal democracy. Their position is much more dictatorial. The traditional and new opposition groups present their views as absolute knowledge. In this case, there is no plurality of views since the opposition groups believe their opinion to be absolute, with no room for opposing views. And the feeling that they alone have opinions that are equivalent to absolute knowledge is what makes the anti-prorogation arguments of the traditional and new opposition groups undemocratic.
And with those features, we have come to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. But before we go, here's a repeat of the highlights. Over $133 billion invested in education upgrade over recent past. Sector gets good review. More attention to be paid to trafficking in persons, and the Georgetown Public Hospital to be upgraded to offer more specialized health care. Please note that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at ginagovgy@gmail.com. Join us again next week as we highlight more of the government's programs and policies that are aimed at enhancing the lives of citizens. I am Shanta Gobardhan. Do have a safe week ahead. Goodbye.